Good day and welcome to Flames of War Firestorm Campaign Operation Bagration. I will be taking a quick look at observing the General's War Game, which is a standalone game that comes in this box. Everything that you need to play is included in here. If you want to play the actual Firestorm campaign with the Flames of War miniature, you will have to purchase the miniatures as well as the rulebook to play that. We'll just be looking at the General's War Game. These are the Firestorm troops that come with the box. Firestorm troops in an area represent the main combat power force of that area. Not all units are represented by the Firestorm troops. An area that has no Firestorm troops is not devoid of any combat troops, so you can still have an attack between these two areas. So looking at a game turn, the first thing that you do is roll for the number of battles. And it can't be under 4, so that would be 7 battles. That you can grab your battle arrows. That's something I do, is make sure, there we go, there's 3, 6, 7 battles that can be fought. And then after every battle, or to determine who goes next, you roll for initiative. Tie goes to the Soviets here. So the Soviets, that's a 1 for the Germans. So the Soviets get to decide which battle gets to be fought. So they'll choose the area to be fought, and they just put down their battle arrow here. This being the Soviet sides, and this being the Germans. So the Soviets are going to attack into this area, which is a forest area. Now both sides will choose their Firestorm troops that will be fought in that battle. You can pick up to 2 Firestorm troops. So the Germans will bring in their Panzer and their Panther tanks. Off to the side here, you can see that there's a legend of what every unit represents, and this one's the Panther unit here for the Germans. And for example, down here, this would be the Soviets for their supply engineer truck that you can look up on the legend and find out what troops are what. So the Soviets will bring in their supply or engineer truck and their submachine gun Firestorm units for the attack. Next, you'll check for supply. Supply is determined by railroad. Making sure that their units are connected by road back to a supply area. For the Soviets, it's back along this edge of the map here, and it has a little supply depot. For the Germans, you'll find them up over here, and as long as there's free of enemy control and following a supply route along the railroad tracks or the supply depot, they are in supply. Now there's Firestorm bonuses. There's just a chart, it's a simple chart inside of this rule book. It's a lovely rule book. It's a colored rule book, lots of pages, mostly describing the Flames of War campaign. But the standalone General's War Game is only 4 pages long. There's some references you have to do throughout the other book, but it's quite simple. Here's a bonus table. So whatever Firestorm troops you commit to the battle, they'll have a certain bonus depending on the area type that they're in. So the area that they're in here is forest. This is clear. There's marshes, there's cities as well. So there's different bonuses, and different Firestorm troops have different attributes that they can add to the battle. So looking at this one here, it's not good for the Germans. They only get to add 3. I think it was 1 for the Panther and 2 for the Panzer, just their regular tank. That's all they get. The Soviets get to add 6. It's 3 and 3 for their truck, their engineer truck, and their submachine gun. Each side rolls a die. Sorry, before I do that, you're supposed to check for supply. They're both in supply. We've done that. And yeah, there's other situation modifiers as well as that you have to look up. So the Germans with their modified die roll, what did I say? 3 plus 1 is 4. The Soviets have 6 plus 5 is 11. So that's a difference of 7. That's quite huge, and that difference is going to make it. You take a look at Um, so the Germans definitely lose and they have to retreat out of there, but there's an opportunity for their units to be destroyed, which is removed from the game just for this turn. Um, and as well as the winning troops have an opportunity to be destroyed too. But since the difference was 7, which is way greater than what a winning troop could lose, so it's just the losing side that would roll to see if their units are destroyed. So it's a +4 for each unit. So we'll roll for the Panzer first. So a 4 or greater, so they get to retreat, and the Panther does as well. If I would have rolled a 4, 5, or 6, they would have been removed. So they retreat back to here, and they're just removed to the reinforcement pool. And at the end of this turn, I'll show you how they come in as reinforcements. That is a battle, so that's done. Like I was saying, that if the difference between them was a lot smaller, there was a chance that these guys could have been removed from the game, or removed just for this turn to their reinforcement pool. Now, if there is nowhere to retreat, let's say they were out of supply, like they're totally cut off by enemy troops, then they would have been destroyed. You just remove them from the game. They don't come back at all. Next is the partisan and police placement. So the Soviets have 4 partisans that they can place, and they can place them in an area, in a German-controlled area. So I should actually put this here because they won that area. This is what this would look like as well. That they come with pieces that denote who controls what area, if it's not already on the map. If it changes hands, then you just put your area control marker over top of the other player's symbol. So the Soviets have 4 partisans, and they can bring them in and cut off supply lines. So they could throw in a partisan into here, cutting off the supply line. Maybe that's not a good example. We'll just throw them there anyways. And that'd cut off the supply routes down to this city. But so they placed all 4, so you can throw 2 here, and then they could also set them up to stop exploitation move as well. And the partisans can only be placed in forest and marsh areas or areas adjacent to them as well, so representing that. And that's where their home territory or their headquarters is, and they can move from there. Now the Germans have an opportunity to put down the police as well. They can throw down 2 of their police, which negates the 2 partisans that are there, and that open up that supply route. And they only have 2, so they have to be very diligent where they place them. And so there's a little bit of thinking there of what the priority is, and what your game plan is as well. And then next you would put down your reinforcements, so you pull them out of the reinforcement pools here, whatever was destroyed the last turn. They come back in, so for the Germans, they come back into a supply area, and as well as for the Soviets, you can bring them into a supply area. Now you can do, and I missed the exploitation move, that was before reinforcements, exploitation. You can move 2 units into an enemy occupied area that does not have a Firestorm unit. So for example here, let's say that was up here. The Germans could move in and exploit into this area and gain control of that area. And then you have to denote that was part of your exploitation moves, because it does matter later when you're doing your strategic moves. So now, jumping forward there, now it's the strategic moves that you can move up your reinforcements up to that area, but I can't move them into the area that I just exploited, but they can move up to the front lines, or you can move guys back if that you don't want to defend in. These guys didn't do well in the forest, so maybe you want to move them into another area that they will perform better, or you need to pull back and defend, shorten up your battle lines, depending, and that's up to you as the general. Soviets always go first for all the exploitation, reinforcements, and strategic movements. And that's about it. And then you start over your turn again, and it's really that simple. And then you roll for how many battles you're going to have. There, I'd have to re-roll because you have to at least roll 4 or more. So there's 8 battles. You'd have 8 battles to commit, and then you just start over. Who's going to have initiative? Who's going to be the first one? The Germans get to pick where they want to fight back. So maybe they want to attack up to here, there for their next turn, or break out of the city. But that is it for the General's War game, Flames of War. It's a very quick-moving, simple game. It solos well because of the initiative rolling for every battle. So there's a little bit of randomness there. It's not a complex game, but there is enough decisions to make it interesting, and it does move quite quickly, where you can play it in between an hour and an